1944, D-Day to the Rhine. Components: game board, 2 counter sheets, 2 sets of rules, 3 double-sided setup and reinforcement charts, 6 custom blue Allied dice, 6 custom black German dice, 1 6-sided die, 3 variable objective cards, 1 lost record. Game board. The game board shows a map of most of France, Belgium, Holland, and Western Germany. On the game board is a hex grid and terrain features that affect and regulate movement, supply, and combat. Each hex measures about 25 miles or 40 kilometers across. The German player controls all cities at the start of the game. Control changes as players move units through cities the other player controls. Current control of cities is indicated with control markers. The Ruhr comprises the 3 major cities of Essen, Dusseldorf, and Dortmund. So if I bring up the map here, the Ruhr are these 3 hexes here on the right side in Germany. The combat effects of terrain are based on the location of the defending unit. Terrain combat effects are cumulative. This means some units are not able to roll any dice when attacking through or into certain terrain. For example, a defender is located in a forest terrain hex adjacent to a river. An infantry corps unit, 2 dice rolled in combat, is attacking it across the river. The attacking unit would be -1 die for the forest terrain and -1 die for crossing the river. The cumulative effect is -2 dice for the attacking unit, resulting in no dice rolled. The player can still choose to include this unit in the attack to absorb potential losses. So that's interesting. I don't think that's normally the case in Hex Encounter wargames. Usually in Hex Encounter wargames you pick the most unfavorable terrain effect to the attacker, and that's the only terrain effect. Although sometimes like the defender will be doubled, but yeah, so it kind of varies. Terrain movement effects within a hex are not cumulative. The terrain cost to enter a hex is the highest cost if more than one condition exists. However, the cost for crossing, is that not, I suppose I should, there we go, do it like this. The cost for crossing a Rhine River hex side to enter a hex is added to the cost of the terrain in the hex. Okay, so for the Rhine River alone, you add that cost. For example, for a unit to enter a woods terrain hex that is located in an enemy zone of control would cost 2 movement points, not 4. Oh, so you don't add the enemy. Okay, so that's unusual, because normally if there's a terrain cost and an enemy zone of control, you would pay the terrain cost and you would pay the zone of control cost. For more, see the back cover for the terrain effects chart. The units. From the counter sheets, the players will divide the army units into their 2 respective armies based on the unit colors. Green, blue, and khaki represent the Allied forces. Gray, black, and white for German forces. Round bomber, naval, airborne, rail, and RCO units are also provided. What is RCO? We look at the unit here. So you've got the size. That's a corps. Unit steps is 2 of 2. Unit ID is 19. Unit type is infantry. Dice rolled in combat is 2. Strength points is 2, so that's the same as this number on the left here. And movement points is 5. Combat bonus. Each combat unit is comprised of symbols and data. Each unit has a row along the bottom with 3 numbers. This one here. From left to right, these are DRC, number of dice rolled in combat, SP, unit steps or strength points, and MP, movement points. DRC, dice rolled in combat. This is the number of dice the unit rolls when attacking or defending in combat. SP, this number is the strength points of the unit and determines how many hits in combat the unit can take before it is eliminated. Core size units have 1 or 2 steps maximum, and army-sized units have 3 or 4 steps maximum. MP. This number is the unit's total movement points for the monthly turn. When activated, the unit has this many movement points to spend while moving. Movement points are reduced by 1 when out of supply. In the center of the unit is a symbol showing the unit type. Infantry, so they're talking about this thing in the middle. Infantry or Panzer, German only. Or Panzer, German only, okay. Special types of infantry, parachute, mountain, coast, fortress, and Volkssturm, have an additional symbol under or on the infantry symbol. Each unit's center square symbol is color-coded to indicate to which army group it is assigned. Along the sides of the unit's symbol are the Corps ID, Roman numerals on the left side, Army ID, Arabic number on the left side, and Army Group ID, Arabic number or letter on the right side. I see. Okay, so if it's Roman numerals, it's a corps. If it's a regular number, it's an army, which are given for historical purposes and to aid in setup and order of battle. Army units have 2 counters each. Unit step reduction. Full strength unit is 4 out of 4 strength points. First hit applied flips the counter to 3 out of 4 strength points. Then you hit it a second time. You switch counters to the 2 out of 4 counter, and then you flip the counter again if it gets hit again to the 1 out of 4 side. And then finally, if it's hit a fourth time, the unit is removed. Got it. Army units have 2 counters each. So, okay, so what this is saying is that army level units have 4 steps, and in order to depict those 4 steps, there are 2 separate physical counters that can be used to represent that army, depending on how many steps it has at the moment. Allied infantry armies. These have a maximum of 4 strength points. Most Allied armies have 4 movement points, but the 3rd U.S. Army has 5 movement points. Okay, that's Patton. German infantry armies. These have a maximum of 3 strength points and 4 movement points. German panzer armies. These have a maximum of 3 strength points and 6 movement points. Panzer armies may be included with any German army group in an attack. Okay. Oh, okay. I think that's probably for a rule regarding mixing army group attacks that we haven't read yet. Players can stack both counters of an army on the board for ease of play, ensuring the current strength is displayed. However, the army is considered one unit. There is no stacking of units. Okay, I get it. So they're saying just to keep things simple for yourself, you can just put both of these counters in the same hex. Makes sense. Corps units have 1 counter each. Allied infantry corps. These have a maximum of 2 strength points. Most Allied infantry corps have 5 movement points, but the mountain and airborne corps have only 4 movement points. The Allied airborne corps may be included with any Allied army group in an attack. Okay. German regular and elite infantry corps. These have a maximum of 2 strength points and 4 movement points. Elite corps are designated by a red border around the inner infantry symbol box. Okay, so that's that. What is that? What's the effect of that? I don't know yet what the effect of being elite is. Volkssturm infantry corps. These have a maximum of 2 strength points and 0 movement points. Static, so they can't move. Coast and fortress infantry corps. These have a maximum of 1 strength point and 0 movement points, static, and they cannot be replaced. German Panzer Corps. These have a maximum of 2 strength points and 6 movement points. Panzer Corps may be included with any German army group attack. Okay. Mountain Infantry Corps. The German 13th SS Corps and the French 2nd Corps. These have 2 special abilities in mountain terrain. First, they are not required to stop when entering mountain terrain if sufficient movement points remain to continue. Second, they do not suffer the -1 dice rolled in combat penalty when attacking into mountain terrain. Okay. These kinds of things should really have like those cards that they have in Memoir 44 to help you remember special rules regarding particular units. I don't want to get any messages saying I am holding my position. We are not holding a goddamn thing. Let the Germans do that. We are advancing constantly, and we are not interested in holding on to anything except the enemy's balls. We're going to twist his balls and kick the living shit out of him all the time. Our basic plan of operation is to advance and to keep on advancing, regardless of whether we have to go over, under, or through the enemy. We're going to go through him like crap through a goose, like shit through a tin horn. George S. Patton. Okay. Unit colors. Allied set. Nationality USA. Outer color green. France blue. Commonwealth khaki. Army Group 6 is dark blue. 12 is dark green. 21st is red. Okay. German set. Regular infantry is gray. Static infantry is white. Panzer is black. Army Group B is yellow. G is dark gray. H is blue. Volkssturm is yellow, gray, dark gray, or blue. Coast is yellow. Fortress is red. Panzer is white. Support units. These round counters enhance combat or movement at no resource point cost and are kept off board until used. Naval units. The 2 allied naval units in the game have a battleship icon. They are kept off board and placed during combat in coast hexes, once per monthly turn. Naval units bombard, adding +1 die to a combat, attack, or defense in a coast hex. Only 1 naval unit can be added to a combat, but it can be combined with an airborne division or bomber unit. Okay. The Eastern Task Force ETF naval unit can support any Commonwealth unit. The Western Task Force WTF naval unit can support any US unit. Okay. Once used, naval units are flipped to the fired side and placed off the map for the remainder of the monthly turn. Terrain restrictions. Naval units cannot bombard Antwerp or the 2 coast hexes to the north if Walcheren is German controlled. That's so specific. That is so specific. There has to that you need like a card to remember that. Okay. Like this is the kind of rule that gets like buried in the rules and you're gonna forget it. You need to have like well, I guess it is in the support unit section. Bomber units. These carpet bomb, adding +2 dice to an attack. The allied player can carpet bomb once per monthly turn, in clear weather. A player cannot carpet bomb Paris. The bomber unit can support an attack of any army group. Procedure. Roll 2 dice before the regular combat. If both dice rolled are blank faces, 1 die is re-rolled and can score a hit against an attacking allied unit. An attacking allied unit. This is an allied aircraft. So if you miss with both dice, there's a chance that it's going to hit your units, if I'm reading that correctly. The allied player can carpet bomb once per monthly turn. Right, yeah. So there's a chance of friendly fire. Okay, that's interesting. I haven't run into a mechanic like that before. Hits from carpet bombing are applied immediately, before regular combat begins. The bomber unit can be combined with a naval unit, but not with an airborne division. Once used, the bomber unit is removed. Airborne units. Each of the 5 Allied airborne units are used once for an airborne operation. A maximum of 2 airborne units can conduct airborne operations in the same monthly turn. Okay. Airborne operation procedure. Airborne operations can be conducted in clear weather only. Airborne units may support attacks of any army group. Okay. I should keep track of what the mechanics this is introducing. All right, so the allied player selects a hex being attacked across a river or a fortress hex being attacked. Okay, so you can only use it in these particular types of attacks, it seems. One airborne unit is placed on the selected hex on top of the German unit being attacked. The attack can also be supported by naval gunfire, but not carpet bombing. Okay, the allied player adds 1 combat die, not affected by terrain, to the attack. This should be an A. After combat is concluded, the airborne unit is removed and cannot be replaced. Okay. Markers. Beachhead. These 2 markers are used to indicate an invasion beachhead, which acts as a source of supply and entry point for the Allies. If occupied by a German unit, the beachhead is eliminated. Turn. This marker is used to track game monthly turns. We have lost the battle, but I assure to you that we will not lose the war. Field Marshal Walter Model. Okay. RP. Each side has a resource point marker to keep track of the resource points available and expended. PC. The Allied side has a port capacity marker to keep track of the current port capacity number. Rail movement. This marker is used to track which German unit has used rail movement. RCO and RCO Dietrich. So this is the Rundstedt's counteroffensive. I think that's what it stands for. The 3 Rundstedt's counteroffensive markers and the Rundstedt's counteroffensive Dietrich marker are for Rundstedt's counteroffensive, RCO. Attacked, finished, and moved, finished. These markers are used to assist a player in keeping track of which units have attacked and or moved. When a unit has completed both actions, the marker is flipped to the finished side. Out of supply, in supply. These markers indicate if a unit is in or out of supply. German hidden and phantom markers, optional. Weather marker. These are used by the Allied player as a reminder of the current weather. Setup. Based on the standard setup chart, both players set their units on board, matching the unit's image to the location shown. Units start at the SP strength point level indicated. Place the resource points markers for both players on the resource point track, and the monthly turn marker on June. The time has come to deal the enemy a terrific blow in Western Europe. The blow will be struck by the combined sea, land, and air forces of the Allies, together constituting one great Allied team. Field Marshal Bernard Law Montgomery. Normandy invasion. The Allied player invades with the units listed as starting forces before the regular German June turn. There is no resource point cost to conduct the invasion attacks or to move into the vacant beachhead hex after combat. Resolving the Normandy invasion. Step 1. Amphibious invasion battle. The Allied player makes 2 attacks at no cost in resource points. Both players roll combat dice. The Allied player rolls 4 dice, 3 for the army, 1 for the naval unit, and 1 for the airborne unit, but -1 for the coast hex side effect for each attack. The German player rolls 2 dice, 1 for the coast unit, and an additional 1 for the coast hex side effect for both combats. Hits are applied simultaneously. If one German coast unit is not eliminated, that landing has failed. The invading army becomes a reinforcement unit in June, with possible lost steps from the combat. If both German coast units survive, the D-Day invasion has failed, and the German player wins by sudden death. Don't worry, there is less than a 1% chance both invasion attacks will fail, and just over a 5% chance that one attack will fail. You can always start a second game. Step 2. Establish beachhead. If the invasion landing succeeds, the invading army moves into the target hex at no cost in resource points. Place the army group beachhead marker in the hex. No further movement or combat is allowed for the Allies before the German player begins his June turn. June German movement restriction. Manteuffel's 5th Panzer Army cannot be activated for movement in June. Sequence of play. A full game monthly turn is described in the sequence below. After the Allied player finishes, the monthly turn marker is advanced 1 space unless sudden death victory is determined earlier. Okay. The Normandy invasion takes place before the sequence begins in the June turn. First, German reinforcements and replacements phase. Optional, phantom units. 2. German activation phase. The German player activates units for movement and combat, checking supply for a unit activated for movement. 3. Allied resource point calculation. Reinforcements and replacements phase. Okay. Checking supply for a unit. Allied activation phase. The Allied player activates units for movement and combat, checking supply for a unit activated for movement. This is the end for Germany. Major Werner Pluskat, 352nd Infantry Division, 84th Corps. Dawn of June 6th, overlooking Omaha Beach. Okay. Resource points. Allied resource points are indicated on the monthly turn record track, with bonus resource points for controlled ports. Allied resource points are calculated each monthly turn by adding the resource point number from the monthly turn record track to the port capacity values of all controlled ports, with a maximum of 24 resource points per monthly turn. The Allied player marks his current port capacity number on the track with the port capacity marker. He marks his current resource point number on the track with the Allied resource point marker. Okay. Port capacity. Each port or beachhead has a port capacity number indicated on the board or counter. PC3 is Antwerp, PC2 is Brest, PC1 is all other ports. Antwerp does not function as a port for the Allies until the 4 hexes, including Walcheren, to the north are clear of German units. Bordeaux does not function as a port for the Allies until Royan is clear of German units. Royan and Walcheren are not ports, do not provide any port capacity or resource points, and cannot be used as entry hexes for Allied units. Okay. German fortress units in fortress hexes on the coast are never out of supply. Okay. But these hexes do not serve as a German source of supply. Okay. German resource points are indicated on the chart on the board. Okay. Resource points are used by each player to add replacement steps to units or to add eliminated units. Return resource chart on the board. I have the board here. Here's the chart. Okay, I don't think this board matches the... not sure. Oh, I think this is one of those, this is the bug where there was supposed to be a chart on the board, but they didn't actually end up including it. Resource points are used to activate units for movement and combat. As each player spends their resource points, they move their marker down the track to reflect their lower resource point total. Once a player has spent all of his resource points or wants to perform no other activations, then their turn is over. No player can spend more resource points than they receive in a monthly turn. Resource points cannot be saved for future monthly turns. For resource point cost, see Rule 19. Okay. Reinforcements. The active player checks the order of battle chart to determine if he receives reinforcements. Allied reinforcements. These are placed in any controlled beachhead or port, on or adjacent to the controlled, in supply, city specified, in a from Marseille hex if noted. Okay, so I guess what that means is some reinforcements specify a city, I guess. If the specified entry city is not under Allied control, the reinforcement can be placed in or adjacent to any controlled beachhead or port. All Allied reinforcements enter the game at their maximum strength points. Okay. German reinforcements. These are placed by army group. What does that mean? Placed by army group. If the specified entry city is no longer under German control, the reinforcement can be placed in or adjacent to any controlled city in Germany that is in supply. All German reinforcements enter the game at 1 strength point level, except for Rundstedt's counteroffensive units. Replacement steps can be added. Okay. Army Group G. Gray reinforcements, Army Group G, which are color gray, reinforcements can be placed in or adjacent to the following in-supply controlled cities: Frankfurt, Strasbourg, Stuttgart, or Trier, or in a from Marseille hex, if noted. Army Group H. These reinforcements can be placed in or adjacent to the following in-supply controlled cities: the Ruhr, Enschede, Köln, or Münster. Panzer. These reinforcements can be placed in or adjacent to any in-supply controlled city in Germany, or Enschede or Strasbourg. Units can temporarily overstack when entering the game, but the entry hex can only have one unit by the end of the turn. Only the original unit in the hex can attack from that hex while overstacked. Not all reinforcements have to enter on the monthly turn designated on the monthly turn track, but can be delayed until future monthly turns. Allied Reinforcement Replacement Unit. Temporary stacking. The Allied player can find he has no accessible vacant hex to move into after placing a reinforcement or replacement unit on a beachhead or port hex. Units can temporarily overstack in a beachhead or port hex. Port hex. I think that's a mistake. But only one unit can remain in the hex at the end of the turn. Only the original unit in the hex can attack from that hex while overstacked. If the beachhead or port hex is overstacked at the end of a turn, excess units are placed back on the turn track for placement next turn. I see. Interesting. Okay. I like this rule. Replacements. Replacements include steps and units, with varying costs indicated on the resource point use chart for different types of units. The player's resource point marker is adjusted on the track as they spend resource points for replacements. Replacement units. The active player can spend resource points to build one strength point replacement units from the replacement pool. It costs one resource point to build a German Volkssturm replacement unit, 2 resource points to build an infantry replacement unit, and 3 resource points to build a German Panzer replacement unit. Additional steps can be added to a reinforcement or replacement unit by spending additional resource points. Reinforcement and replacement units can be brought in at a location that is in enemy zone of control. Reinforcement and replacement locations must be in supply. Cities must be controlled. Okay, so it says additional steps can be added. I'm guessing this is still subject to the same rule that I think it said elsewhere, that you can only add one step per unit per turn. I have to double check that. Hitler made only one big mistake when he built his Atlantic Wall. He forgot to put a roof on it. World War II U.S. paratrooper aphorism. Got it. Allied replacement units are placed by Army Group. The 12th Army Group US and 21st Army Group Commonwealth replacement units can be placed in any beachhead or port. The 6th Army Group US replacement units can be placed in any from Marcel hex. The 6th Army, what does that mean, from Marcel hex? Is that like a rule that I have to learn? I guess that's a later rule. 6th Army Group French replacement units can be placed in or adjacent to any city in France. German replacement units are placed by Army Group in or adjacent to these cities. Army Group B, the Ruhr, Frankfurt, Cologne, or Trier. How is this? Reinforcement. Oh, these are reinforcements. So reinforcements are those things that are on the track, I think. Replacements are different from reinforcements. I see. the replacement pool. Okay, I see. So reinforcements are those things that are on the track that are scheduled to be you're scheduled to receive them. You don't have to pay for them. Whereas replacement units are things that you're spending money or spending resource points to recruit. Okay. German replacement units are placed by Army Group in or adjacent to these cities. Army Group B, the Ruhr, Frankfurt, Cologne, or Trier. Army Group G, Frankfurt, Strasbourg, Stuttgart, or Trier. Army Group H, the Ruhr, Enschede, Cologne, or Münster. Panzer, any city in Germany, Enschede or Strasbourg. Volkssturm, replacement units can only be placed in the German city named on the counter. Okay. Replacement steps. The active player can add replacement steps to units on board that are not at full strength. It costs 1 resource point for each infantry, including Volkssturm, strength point, or 2 resource points for a Panzer strength point. Replacement steps can also be added to reinforcement and replacement units just placed during the current monthly turn. Units in an enemy zone of control can only add 1 strength point per monthly turn. A unit not in an enemy zone of control can add as many steps as a player wants, as long as enough resource points are available. Okay, so that's how that works. National replacement limits. Some nationalities suffered from manpower or equipment shortages, limiting the number of resource points that can be spent on replacements each monthly turn. Commonwealth. A maximum of 2 resource points can be spent on replacements for Commonwealth units, British and Canadian units, each monthly turn. US. A maximum of 4 resource points can be spent on replacements for US units, each monthly turn. France. There is no limit on replacement spending for French units. Okay, I'm confused. So the reinforcements... Are reinforcements brought on full strength as for the Germans? Replacement steps can be added. Okay. Replacements. Okay. Germany, infantry units. There is no limit on replacement spending for German infantry units. However, eliminated German fortress and coast units cannot be replaced. Panzer units. A maximum of 3 resource points can be spent on German panzer replacements each monthly turn. I see, so that's regardless of whether it's a reinforcement unit that was brought on at 1 strength point or if it was a replacement unit that you paid to bring back onto the board. German armies, infantry and panzer, and elite infantry corps. These cannot be replaced in January, February, and March, but can still receive replacement steps, I say. So the phrase being replaced means bringing the counter onto the board, whereas receiving replacement steps means that you're adding steps to an existing unit. Makes sense. Activating units for movement and combat. A unit can be activated once a monthly turn to move. Also, a unit can be activated once a monthly turn to attack. So I think what they're saying there is you can't like move a little bit and then attack and then move a little bit again. You have to do all of your movement in one move. This can be done in any order, and other friendly units can be activated in between the 2 actions. In other words, units can be activated in any order to perform a move or attack, as long as they are only activated once for each in a monthly turn. Once a unit has been activated for movement, it cannot be activated again in the same monthly turn to move. Once a unit has been activated to attack, it cannot be activated again in the same monthly turn to attack. This seems like a repetition, but maybe useful for clarity. Markers are provided to assist players in keeping track of which units have moved and or attacked. Check supply for an activated unit at the time of activation for movement. If the unit is in supply, then one resource point allows one unit to make a tactical move up to its full movement allowance, or a motorized rail move. If the unit is out of supply, one resource point allows the unit to make a tactical move with one less movement point, but not a motorized rail move. One resource point allows all adjacent units of the same army group to attack one hex with a defender located in it, following all terrain rules. If an attack includes units from 2 or more army groups, it costs 2 resource points. Allied airborne and German panzer units do not belong to an army group. These units can combine with any army group to make attacks at the 1 resource point cost. German fortress infantry corps function as a separate army group and must pay the extra resource point to attack with units of any army group. Movement. Unit zone of control. Each land unit has a zone of control which extends into all 6 hexes around the hex the unit is located in. The zone of control affects movement and supply. It costs 2 movement points to enter an enemy zone of control, and for each hex moved through an enemy zone of control. An enemy zone of control blocks supply. A friendly unit in a hex negates enemy zones of control for supply purposes, but not for the 2 movement point movement cost for the hex. Okay. But you don't have to stop. It seems like you don't have to stop. Okay. Tactical movement. An activated unit spends its supply adjusted movement points to move. It costs 1 resource point to activate a unit for tactical movement, allowing it to move its available movement points. When activated, a unit checks its supply status, and if out of supply, it reduces its available movement points by 1. Movement is from hex to hex, from hex to adjacent hex. Units cannot skip hexes when moving. Units cannot spend more movement points than they have in a monthly turn. Movement points cannot be saved or transferred between units. The cost of the terrain in each hex is deducted from the unit's available movement points until it does not have enough movement points to move any further, or the player does not want to move the unit further. The terrain cost in movement points is not cumulative, but you must pay the highest cost. For example, moving into a clear hex in an enemy zone of control costs 2 movement points, not 3 movement points. Right, because moving into a clear hex is 1, moving into a zone of control is 2, so if you added them together, that would be 3. If you just take the highest cost, that's 2. So when I played this, I played the Battle of the Bulge learning scenario with someone before having read the manual, and I think I did this wrong. I think I was adding the costs together, because I think that's normally how you do that in operational level games, lower level games. It costs 1 movement point to cross the Rhine River. The Rhine River crossing cost is added to the terrain cost of the hex entered. For example, to cross a Rhine River hex side into a clear hex in an enemy zone of control costs 3 movement points. 2 movement points to enter a hex in an enemy zone of control, which is greater than the open terrain cost, but not cumulative, plus 1 movement point to cross the river. No hex can have more than 1 unit located in it at the end of a unit's movement. Units can move through hexes with friendly units located in them, but cannot stop. Units can move through hexes with friendly... Okay. Units cannot enter a hex that contains an enemy unit. Strategic movement. Units can make a strategic Allied motorized or German rail move instead of a tactical move at the same cost of 1 resource point if the following conditions are met. The unit must be in supply when activated for movement. The unit must not start, move through, or end movement in an enemy zone of control. Units can use strategic, motorized, or rail movement after attacking as long as the enemy unit is destroyed and the unit is activated for movement in a hex free of an enemy zone of control. Attacking after a strategic, motorized, or rail move is not possible. Allied motorized movement. Motorized move distance can be up to double the unit's movement points in hexes, ignoring terrain costs, and is subject to these additional conditions. Units cannot cross the Rhine. Units can enter hexes not in Allied supply, and can extend Allied supply by gaining control of cities during movement. Okay. It's interesting to me that the movement points that you get for strategic movement are dependent on the type of unit being moved, when this seems to be simulating trucks or trains, which would seemingly not be affected by the type of stuff they're moving. So I'm not sure that's a good way to do it, but that's an interesting point for discussion. For example, an Allied unit with 4 movement points can move 8 hexes using motorized movement, and an Allied unit with 5 movement points can move 10 hexes using motorized movement, as long as all the conditions above are met. German rail movement. Beginning in July, the German player can move 1 unit per turn by rail. A rail move can be of unlimited distance. Units, movement points, and terrain do not matter. Okay, so that answers my question. And is subject to these additional conditions. A rail move is from current location to any in-supply hex in Germany, or any controlled city hex or hex adjacent to a controlled city hex outside Germany. The unit must remain in supply throughout the entire rail move. Combat. So I think what this means is you can't pass through an enemy zone of control. That's my guess, unless it's occupied by a friendly unit. Combat. Units are never required to attack. Only units in an enemy zone of control are eligible to attack. Not all units in the defender's zone of control have to attack. Supply has no effect on combat. To attack a defending hex containing an enemy unit with units of the same army group, a player spends 1 resource point. If units of 2 or more army groups participate in the attack, a player spends 2 resource points. The attacker announces which adjacent units will be attacking, and the allied player announces if a bomber, airborne, and/or naval unit will be added. This costs 0 resource points but adds attack dice to the combat. Bomber, naval, and airborne units are not affected by terrain. Bomber units may not be combined with airborne units. Combat is simultaneous, so both players roll for attack and defense at the same time. The attacker totals the number of dice to roll for the attacking units and modifies that total by any terrain factors. The defender then adds any terrain modifiers to his defending unit's dice total. The players roll their attack and defense dice. Okay. Hits are scored for symbols rolled on dice as follows. Blue allied dice, panzer symbol, aircraft symbol, infantry symbol. Black German die. Aircraft symbol. In clear weather, this scores a hit on a panzer unit. If no panzer unit is present, the hit is applied to an infantry unit. In overcast weather, the aircraft symbol is a miss. Panzer symbol. This scores a hit on a panzer unit. If no panzer unit is present, the hit is applied to an infantry unit. Infantry symbol. This scores a hit on an infantry unit. Hits are applied simultaneously. No hits are applied until both players have rolled. So the aircraft thing is not something you need to like spend. That's not a like a token that you have to apply to a combat in order to get the benefit of the aircraft. It's just always present in clear weather. Hits are applied simultaneously. No hits are applied until both players have rolled. The owning player decides how to apply hits to his attacking units in any manner he desires, all to one unit or spread amongst units. Weather effect on combat. During overcast weather, December and January, Allied rolls of an aircraft symbol are treated as misses, not hits. For example, during combat, each time a unit receives a hit, it is flipped or replaced to the next lower strength point. When a unit is reduced below one strength point, it is removed from the board and placed in the replacement pool, or permanently eliminated, German Coast and Fortress Corps, and German armies and elite infantry corps from January to March. Supply. For a German unit to be in supply, it must be able to trace a supply chain from the unit 5 hexes to a German-controlled city in supply, to the east or south German board edge. East or south German. So that's east or south. South German. Oh, from Marseille. Okay. German board edge. I guess that's like these hexes, south to the east of Switzerland. Or to the South France board edge from June to August. Controlled cities must be able to trace a continuous chain of controlled cities within 5 hexes of each other to a supply board edge. Got it. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so these cities in the south are kind of separated from the ones in the north. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, this one connects. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. For an Allied unit to be in supply, it must be able to trace a supply chain from the unit 5 hexes to an Allied-controlled city in supply, to an Allied-controlled port or beachhead, or to the South France board edge beginning in September. Controlled cities must be able to trace a continuous chain of controlled cities within 5 hexes of each other to the south board edge or an Allied-controlled port or beachhead. A supply chain cannot enter or pass through an enemy zone of control or an enemy-controlled city. Friendly units do negate enemy zones of control in the hexes they occupy, but a friendly zone of control does not negate an enemy zone of control. A unit located on a friendly supply board edge is always in supply. Supply chains cannot be traced through an enemy unit or an enemy zone of control. Okay. When a unit is activated, it checks supply for movement effects. If it is out of supply, it receives 1 less movement point for movement. Units that are out of supply cannot use motorized or rail movement. Supply has no effect on combat. This is supply having no effect on combat is actually unusual. Normally, if supply is included in a game, it'll like have have the unit in fight when fighting, something like that. A unit that is out of supply at the end of the player's turn, German Phase 2 or Allied Phase 4, is eliminated and placed in the replacement pool or discarded. Okay, so that's brutal. That's unusual. German units located along the east or south German map edge hex row are never out of supply. German fortress units are never eliminated for being out of supply. Allied units located in a beachhead, port, or along the southern French map edge hex row beginning in September are never out of supply. Control of cities. All cities are under German control at the start of the game. The Allies can liberate friendly cities or occupy German cities to gain control, indicated by placing an Allied control marker on the city. If the German player later reoccupies a city, the Allied control marker is removed. Liberation. Cities in France, Belgium, and Holland, Allied countries, can be liberated as follows. Moving into or through an Allied city causes immediate liberation. If the German player cannot trace supply to a vacant Allied city at the end of his turn, Phase 2, the city is liberated. This includes fortress ports that have lost their German garrison unit through combat. Occupation. To gain control of a city in Germany, the Allied player must occupy or move through the city with an Allied unit. If an Allied-controlled German city is out of supply at the end of an Allied turn, it reverts to German control. Out of Allied supply. Once a city is liberated or occupied, place an Allied control marker on the city to aid in supply line tracing and victory determination. Invasion of southern France. The Allied invasion of southern France takes place off-board. The invasion succeeds automatically in August and triggers the entry of units for both sides in September. German Army Group G units. These enter in September. Units can enter in any hex on the southern board edge in France. Both German units can be activated for movement at no resource point cost in September only. One unit can be activated for a rail movement, exhausting the only rail move available for Germany in September. Franco-American 6th Army Group units. These enter in September and later. Units can enter in any from Marseille hex. So that is these 5 hexes at the bottom here. Later reinforcements will also enter in the same way when from Marseille is noted on the Allied order of battle chart. Rundstedt's counteroffensive, RCO. The German High Command decided in September to launch a major counteroffensive on the Western Front. Units and resources were secretly gathered and deployed for this attack over the next 3 monthly turns. The German player can choose to launch Rundstedt's counteroffensive in November, December, or January, with increasing forces and decreasing surprise over time. I strongly object to the fact that this stupid operation in the Ardennes is sometimes called the Rundstedt Offensive. This is a complete misnomer. I had nothing to do with it. It came to me as an order complete to the last detail. Hitler had even written on the plan in his own handwriting, not to be altered. Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt. So, should really be called Hitler's counteroffensive. Variable reinforcements. November. Dietrich's 6th Panzer Army, 3 strength points. Oh, is that? Okay. December. Dietrich's 6th Panzer Army, 3 strength points, and 1st SS Panzer Corps at 1 strength point. January. Dietrich's 6th Panzer Army at 3 strength points, and the 1st SS Panzer Corps at 2 strength points. So I guess this is for the counteroffensive. Dietrich's 6th Panzer Army, free move and attack. The 6th Panzer Army can both move and attack at no resource point cost in the monthly turn of the counteroffensive. A counteroffensive Dietrich attack move marker is provided. Other units can participate in the 6th Panzer Army attack as the player desires. Surprise attack counteroffensive bonus. The German player receives 1 in January, 2 in December, or 3 in November counteroffensive surprise markers that can be used during the German turn to provide a movement and attack benefit. Upon activation of a selected in-supply unit for movement or an attack, in either order, place the counteroffensive marker on the activated unit. Only one counteroffensive marker can be committed to a unit. The German player adds 1 movement point during movement for this unit, and adds 1 combat die not affected, should be an A, by terrain to its attack. Remove and discard the counteroffensive marker after both movement and attack are completed. Counteroffensive markers cannot be saved for a later turn. Victory. Either player can win by sudden death or by end-of-game victory conditions. Sudden death. German sudden death. The German player wins if there are no Allied units on the continent at the end of any German turn. Allied sudden death. By the end of the February 1945 turn, the Allied player wins by exiting an army using tactical, not motorized movement in any of the 3 exit zones by the end of February. So I guess these are the 3 exit zones: Hamburg, Berlin, Vienna. The Allied army must be in supply in the hex it exits from to score a sudden death victory. Okay. End of game victory conditions. At the end of the March 45 turn. German Major. There are no Allied units in Germany east of the Rhine. So the Rhine is this blue river here. So if there are no Allied units east of this blue river, or control 6 German cities east of the Rhine in supply. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's all of them, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think, yeah, they mean all of those cities have to be controlled and in supply. And control 1 city, excluding fortress port cities, west of the Rhine in supply. So 1 of these cities west of the Rhine. Okay. German minor victory. You get a German minor victory if you control 5 German cities east of the Rhine in supply, or you control 1 city, excluding fortress port cities, west of the Rhine in supply. Draw. You get a draw if neither player fulfills his victory conditions. You get an Allied minor victory if there are no cities, excluding fortress port cities, under German control in supply west of the Rhine. Okay, and the Allies have isolated, placed out of supply, or control the Ruhr. The Ruhr is these 3 hexes here. Or the Allies control one northern city, Essen or Münster. Münster's here, Essen. Essen, where's Essen? Northern city. Okay. Essen. Oh, Essen is here. Oh, so there's more than 6. So these are, okay, so it's the Ruhr region, but these are 3 different cities. Essen, Dusseldorf, and Dortmund. So you could have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Got it. Control one northern city, Essen or Münster, and one southern city, Frankfurt or Stuttgart. Okay. What is that line? Is that the border of Germany and the Netherlands? I guess, yeah, I guess so. Okay, so German city east of the Rhine. So this line is for Germany. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there are 7 German cities east of the Rhine. No, 8. No, hold on. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 German cities east of the Rhine. Right. Cologne is in Germany, but it's west of the Rhine. Got it. Essen or Münster. Okay. Frankfurt or Stuttgart. Got it. Allied major victory. The Allied player gets a major victory if there are no German units west of the Rhine, excluding fortress port units, and the Allies have isolated, placed out of supply, or control the Ruhr, Essen, Dusseldorf, and Dortmund, and the Allies have exited at least one army in each of the 3 exit zones, to Hamburg, to Berlin, and to Prague, Vienna, using tactical, not motorized movement. The Allied armies must be in supply at the moment of exit, and it costs 1 movement point to exit. Okay? Optional rules. Quick start. Instead of fighting the Normandy invasion, the game begins with the Allies already ashore. Use the quick setup deployment chart. The German 84th Corps begins in the replacement pool. 1 German coastal unit and the American 82nd 101st and British 6th Airborne units are removed from play. The U.S. First Army, Hodges, and UK Second Army, Dempsey, are both at a reduced strength of 3 steps. Begin the game with the German June turn. The Allied June turn has already occurred and is not played. Okay. Variable objectives. Before the start of the September turn, the Allied player randomly selects one of the 3 objective cards without revealing it to the German player. The objective card provides a set of victory conditions the Allied player must pursue. The German player wins by preventing Allied victory. Optional. The Allied player may choose rather than randomly select one of the 3 objective cards without revealing it to the German player. Single thrust. A modified version of the historical operation in 9 monthly turns. Allied victory cannot be achieved by end-of-game conditions, but only by sudden death. The Allied player wins by exiting an army in any of the 3 exit zones, using tactical, not motorized movement, by the end of the February turn. The Allied army must be in supply in the hex it exits from, and it costs 1 movement point to exit. Is there like a setup card for this? A modified version of the historical operation. Okay, I'm not quite sure I understand what this is saying. Broad front. The Allied player wins at the end of the March turn if there are no German units west of the Rhine, excluding fortress port garrisons, and Allies control Essen or Munster and Frankfurt or Stuttgart. Okay, these are all variable objectives. Oh, I see. These are all different the cards. I see. I see. Objective Ruhr. The Allied player wins at the end of the March turn if there are no cities under German control in supply west of the Rhine, excluding fortress port cities, and Allies control the entire Ruhr, Essen, Dusseldorf, and Dortmund. Okay, so these are alternatives to the normal victory conditions. Short scenarios. Home by Christmas. A shortened scenario of the first 6 June through November monthly turns. The German player does not receive the counteroffensive forces. The German player wins if the Allied player fails to achieve victory by the end of the November turn. Victory conditions. The Allied player wins by crossing the Rhine with at least one in-supply army east of the Rhine in Germany by the end of the Allied November turn, or earlier. In-supply army east of the Rhine in Germany. So that would be here, east of the Rhine, here, east of the Rhine in Germany. Ardennes counteroffensive in 1945. A shortened scenario of the last 4 December to March monthly turns. Use the standard end-of-game victory conditions. Ardennes counteroffensive, learning scenario. A shortened scenario of just the December monthly turn, using only the northern portion of the map. German player wins if a major victory if he captures and holds Antwerp, a minor victory if he captures and holds Brussels. Allies win by preventing a German victory. Okay. Antwerp is here and Brussels is here. Got it. Free invasions. The Allied player can conduct 2 invasions at locations of his choice. Use the same invasion procedures listed in Resolving the Normandy Invasion above. The invading armies are Dempsey's 2nd UK Army and Hodge's 1st US Army, and all support units listed as starting forces. The 3rd invasion of southern France is unchanged and occurs automatically, unless the accelerated dragoon option is played. Invasions can be made in any coast hex marked with an arrow of the 5 invasion zones. So that's, well, this 5 invasion zones. Any coast hex marked with an arrow of the 5 invasion zones. So I guess, is this 1, 2, 3, 4, how do I hide? Not sure. What counts as an invasion zone? 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, maybe they meet. Okay. Maybe these named areas. Brittany, Lower Normandy, Upper Normandy, Pas-de-Calais, and Belgium. Okay. Both armies can invade immediately before the German June turn. Or one army can invade in June, and the second invasion may be delayed until immediately before the German July turn. Okay, interesting. Immediately before the German July turn. Okay. The two armies can invade in the same invasion zone or different invasion zones. If the second invasion is delayed until July, the Allied player receives only half his scheduled reinforcement points in June, 4 reinforcement points instead of 8. In addition, only the listed starting forces may take part in the second invasion, not the unit scheduled for July. So if a delayed invasion is made, July and August reinforcements for that army group are delayed 1 turn each. From June to August, Commonwealth reinforcements can only arrive at the Commonwealth beachhead or any controlled port, and U.S. reinforcements can only arrive at the U.S. beachhead or any controlled port. Okay. Invasion zones and effects. Effects are based on the easternmost zone invaded in a turn. Brittany, 4 coast hexes between Brest and St. Malo. So here, Brest, St. Malo. Okay? And that's 1, 2, 3, 4. No Allied air power. Air faces on the dice rolled do not score hits during both the invasion and the June turn. Manteuffel's 5th Panzer Army cannot be activated for movement in June. Okay. I don't understand the connection between where it was invaded and these things. Lower Normandy. 2 coast hexes between Cherbourg and Caen. Cherbourg and Caen. Manteuffel's 5th Panzer Army cannot be activated for movement in June. Okay, I think the idea here is that Hitler is still anticipating that the main invasion is going to be at wherever that closest point is, I guess Calais. Upper Normandy. 2 coast hexes east of Le Havre. Le Havre. Okay. 2 coast hexes east. Oh, so it's just, oh, okay. I just noticed this black and white line here. I see. So Upper Normandy is just these 2 hexes. The German player receives 7 reinforcement points per turn from the German turn immediately following the invasion up to and including August. Pas de Calais. 2 coast hexes west of Calais. So it's these 2 hexes, right? The German player receives 8 reinforcement points per turn from the German turn immediately following the invasion up to and including August. Belgium. 2 coast hexes east of Dunkirk. Here, okay? The German player receives 9 reinforcement points per turn from the German turn immediately following the invasion up to and including September. So I guess the idea here is the more east you invade, the more scary it is for Hitler. And so he puts more resources into fighting it. Something like that. I don't understand why there's no air power if you invade in Brittany. But okay. Accelerated Dragoon. Operation Anvil Dragoon was originally planned to occur simultaneously with the Normandy landing. Although the forces were available, a shortage of landing craft and transport aircraft forced a 2-month delay. This option presupposes that the Allies decided to go ahead with the simultaneous landing in northern and southern France by curtailing the forces in the north. The Allied player can conduct one invasion at a location of his choice with Dempsey's 2nd UK Army and all support units listed as starting forces. The invasion of southern France succeeds automatically with the following changes. I see, so instead of 2 invasions, you can do 1. U.S. and French units of 6th Army Group arrive on the southern map edge in July, September, 2 months early. I say. Allied reinforcement points are resource points. Allied resource points are reduced to 4 in June and increased to 12 in July and 14 in August. German Army Group G forces also arrived July and August, 2 months early. German resource points are increased to 8 in July and August. The Allied player can conduct a third invasion at a location of his choice in August, with Hodges's 1st U.S. Army and all support units listed as starting forces. U.S. units of 12th Army Group scheduled to arrive in June to August, instead arrive in August and October, 2 months late. Okay. All other units arrived as scheduled. I see. So this is just simulating what would happen. Right. Okay, I get it. German Phantom units. The 2 German Phantom units provide realistic uncertainty and fog of war, as the Allied player will not know which units behind the lines are real and which are phantoms. Procedure. Entry. Whenever the German player receives a reinforcement or replacement unit in Phase 1, he can bring on 1 Phantom unit per monthly turn in the same entry hex or in an adjacent entry hex with a real unit, as long as the entry hex is more than 2 hexes from any Allied unit. The real unit and the Phantom unit are both covered with a hidden marker. The player can activate both the real unit and the Phantom unit for movement on the turn of entry at the cost of 1 resource point. It costs 1 resource point to activate a Phantom unit for movement after its turn of entry. I see. Phantom units can move as either Panzer, 6 movement points, or infantry, 4 movement points. Phantom units can never move within 2 hexes of an enemy unit. Phantom units do not exert a zone of control. Phantom units are immediately eliminated if an enemy unit moves within 2 hexes. If the enemy unit has movement points remaining, it can continue to move. Phantom units can be removed by the owning player at any time, for example, to allow a new Phantom unit to be brought into play. Okay, so this is the resource point table. This is how much you get each month. Resource point use, this is the cost to do different things. We've got a quote. Soldiers, sailors, and airmen of the Allied Expeditionary Force, you are about to embark upon the great crusade, toward which we have striven these many months. The eyes of the world are upon you. General Dwight D. Eisenhower, Supreme Allied Commander. And that's the manual. That's the whole thing. And then the only thing left is this terrain effects chart. All right.